This channel is about trader psychology and the emotional intelligence it takes from you and from me in order to be risk managers. That's what traders are. We add inventory at a certain price, we need to protect our capital, and we need to know when to take winners. If it was just about the charting part, we wouldn't really need 45 new books every month because all the charts that we'd ever need to learn have already been published and written about, and everybody would be off to smooth sailing. Unfortunately, that's not the case. The biggest thing that undermines people and their trading is themselves. I had to learn that the hard way. I came from an Ivy League school thinking I knew a lot and that was going to parlay into me making my millions. Eventually, it did, but not for the reasons that I thought. The idea here is that if you don't know who you are, it really doesn't matter what you know. So the approach from this channel is to help you understand the trader and the trading psychology and the emotional intelligence so that you can learn about yourself. You're the biggest asset of your trading, not the chart pattern, not your account balance, not your trading style, nor the asset class. It all comes down to you. And to me, as far as I can see, the amount of money that you can make really comes down to your ability to deal with the level of uncertainty that you're willing to endure. And that's an emotional decision. So I'm not here to preach what's the best trading style. I'm not here to preach what the best asset class is. I'm not here to say that scalping is better or worse than any other type of trading. There's probably one, at least to start, that's really, really good for you. And then you can expand from there. To me, it makes no sense whatsoever to sit around and to do chart review when 75 to 80% of trading is about the emotional and the psychological. Now, some of you might say, yeah, but Mike, I've never had any trouble with that. To me, that shows evidence that you were just born like me with the right temperament. You have the right emotional constitution to manage risk, and losses don't bother you intellectually or emotionally. And if you're smart, you're not taking large losses that would destabilize you from financially. You know, you don't want to lose half your capital so that you have to double your account balance to get back to break even. In my experience, those people are real gamblers, right? And there's a place for them, but you know, the big thing about gambling is cash management, right? So I won't get into that. So I don't preach here what's good or bad for you, but I feel from a karma standpoint, I'm doing God's work in that I'm talking and speaking to you every day about the hardest part of trading, which is managing yourself. The math that you need to trade is really simple. It doesn't get beyond fourth grade math, at least in the Empire State, the great state of New York. You can certainly make it more complicated. You could add a little algebra. You could look at Bayes' theorem, right? You could look at the mathematics of expectation. You could look at, you know, conditional probabilities. But even still, you can really cover all of that in high school. It doesn't require a degree in differential equations or stochastic calculus or Ito's lemma, right? You can make it that way if that's who you are. But and go work at Citadel or what have you, or David Shaw, or you know, Renaissance. No problem. I support all of it. But for the do-it-yourselfer who's at home, who's not at a trading desk and working where you're getting ongoing trading and you're trying to figure this out on yourself, to me, you're going about everything backwards. And the way I like to think about it is this. You're looking at all these different trading styles and asset classes to trade without putting any work on knowing who you are. So hear me out for a minute. I think if you know what makes you tick and you know why you want to trade and what you want out of trading, not just financially, but self-esteem, like what do you want out of it for you, your person, right? Because we operate on several levels. There's a physical level. There's a spiritual level, which could include religion, meditation, any of that, maybe do unto others, be a good Christian, whatever that might be. And then there's the intellectual. And so most people, their entry to trading is learning about the intellectual side. My whole thing is, why don't you learn about yourself first? Because once you know what makes you tick, it's so much easier to pick the right asset class and the right holding period and or the right level of leverage if that's appropriate for you. You know, just as an aside, if you can't trade cash and make money, you really have no business using leverage, right? Don't worry about getting bigger. Make sure you don't get smaller. So I'd like to focus on this channel as a way of giving back. Like if you know my story, when I started, there weren't even the BlackBerry two-way pagers. There was no internet. There were no Discords, and then anything that you might go to the internet for, whether you're on a desktop, laptop, iPad, or mobile smartphone. It was who do you know as far as people and maybe reading books. And that was very limited. There's only so many, how many, times can you ask people like, who do you know who is a prop trader at Bear Stearns? Who do you know who works, at, Renaissance, right? So you have to find a way to network. It was much bigger networking environment in that regard, and it was harder to reach people. Why? Because there was no way to text people. There was no email addresses. So what'd you do? Send a fax? You know what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, I always made a promise to God and to the universe that said if I had any success, I was going to help out anybody and everybody. And the majority of people who watch this channel, I'll never get to know, I'll never get to meet. And speaking about the trader psychology and the emotional intelligence part, to me, is the most valuable part. It's where people have the most struggles. How do I know? Well, I can just prove it by the number of emails and comments that I get. People say things like, man, I turned my 401k into a 101k. You know, I could have used your help way back when. Or I wish I had come across your channel 2 years ago. Or I'm really grateful because I'm just starting out. I'm 6 months into it. I've been struggling quite a bit, but you give me a peace of mind and you help me understand that this is a marathon, not a sprint, and that I'm really trading much too aggressively, and or I'm all over the place, and or I don't know what my goals are. So this to me gives me solace that I'm actually on the path because I'm getting more and more of these types of comments, so I know the message is resonating with you. I could very easily sit and do chart analysis, but here's the deal. I feel that it would be derelict to come and speak about a chart and then not talk about the trader emotional intelligence and the trader psychology part. Now, that part actually takes an enormous amount of time to go through. That's why it's behind the firewall in the course, because to go over one chart could take me 2 or 3 hours. You want to see my chart analysis, I'll show you. But it's not something that I can do on this channel here because I just don't have the time. So I would suggest you go through the playlist that I created for you called the top videos. Those seem to resonate very, very deeply over a very long period of time with the folks who've come by and watched the videos, and for especially the subscribers. So you can do a lot of homework and you could look at each of these videos as a lesson unto yourself, free of charge. I'm more than happy to try to create these videos for you every day to the extent that I have the time to do it. Of course, I batch process them. I don't do them every day. I do them in batches because it's the only way I can afford the time to do it. And I don't ask for anything. I don't even ask you to subscribe. I wrote a book many years ago. It was published in 2011 by FT Press, Financial Times, called The Inner Voice of Trading. And it's really a book of failure. It's not a how to trade book as it is a memoir of what I had to go through, which is very congruent to what you might be going through right now. The book has 4.5 out of 5 stars on Amazon. And I give away the audiobook version because I own that one. The link is in the description. You can get it for free. And you can see where there's parallels. Eventually, I did have to learn how to trade. But as I've said before on this show, the best teacher for you is you actually doing it and learning it on the way, right? That's really the best way to learn how to trade. I can help people accelerate their learning curve, but that requires an enormous amount of time. The best part of it is you can do it online for sure, but it's self-study. I'm not involved. The group mastermind is ongoing, and that gets me into your face, so there's no place to hide. And that's where I start to guarantee the results, because as long as you're willing to do the work and then share with me what it is that you're working on, then we have something that we can grow from. But you have to be accountable. You have to be ready, willing, and able to do the work. The one-on-one is even better because now it's private. It's just the two of us and we can rock and roll. But that's where I can get into the deeper dive. It makes no sense for me to talk to you about, how to matchmake you with certain men or women that you might be attracted to, when ultimately it comes down to chemistry. And I have no way of knowing that any of my chart analysis, if I just did the chart analysis, if any of that would resonate with you. You might understand it intellectually, but I don't want that blood on my hands. There's enough people doing chart analysis that you don't need to see it from me every day. Because if you lose money, I don't want that blood on my hands, because it's too easy to lose money even in good markets. So without knowing who you are, this is kind of a know your customer kind of a thing. I don't want to get into that or even do chart analysis because it could be construed as a trade recommendation, even if I'm in the trade. Since I don't know who you are, I don't know what your financial means are, I don't know if you have dependents, I don't know if you're a household with more than one income, I don't know how old you are, and I don't know what you've set aside for retirement. By the way, do not use your retirement funds to trade. If you don't know what you're doing, you'll thank me in 10 years. So not knowing any of those particulars, which meet MSRB Rule G19 and New York Stock Exchange Rule 405, know your customer rules, it's irresponsible for me to sit here and do chart analysis without doing 4 times as much work to talk about the psychological and the emotional. And although you might be ready, willing, and able to be, no, Mike, it's just fine, just do it. I get to draw the boundaries. And not to sound this way, but yes, I'm sitting at the head of the table, and this is the way I prefer to do it. The only way I would bring someone into that type of an audience is if I knew what the environment was and I had a better way of understanding who that person was, and I could speak to knowing more about the person. That would be very, very responsible. Why? Well, most of the people who are doing the chart analysis have a Discord, a Telegram, or they're selling some type of course on chart analysis. And that's not the business that I'm in. I do the consulting, but it's more on the personal coaching side to help you find a system with which you're compatible. Thank you very much for being here. Now go check out the list that I was just talking about called Top Videos.